Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we find ourselves on the cusp of Disney's big venture into the world of streaming, even courting a war in the process, we thought it'd be nice to stay up to date on the ever-growing catalog and rule on what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus. Tonight we're talking the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Star-Spangled Man with a plan. I cannot complete that sentence without adding the with a plan in there. All right, and joining us tonight, fresh off of the Geekvolution stream of this. So, Conner, you've already spent like an hour and a half talking about this show. So, thanks for coming on and talking about it a little bit more. I appreciate it. Conner Nielson.
Yeah, no problem. Hello, Tiki. Hello, Blue Dragon 5. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing quite well, Conner. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. It's been a really busy day, actually, which was kind of
noticed.
unexpected. But, all things considered, I'm happy to be here, happy to be talking with you guys.
I'm sure for a fact that Dragon is going to disagree with this statement, but I think that over an hour and a half talking about this show is entirely too much for one day. So, Conner, I very much thank you for being here. It's much appreciated.
He's right. I do disagree with that statement.
I'm sure you do, Dragon. But, all right. So, it's interesting because one of the big things that y'all were talking about, and I honestly thoroughly agree with, especially with this episode, is I honestly think episode 1 was, it was fine. The action sequence was very good at the beginning, but it was just kind of like setup. Like, this is where we really, I quite like this episode. I still don't think this show is like very much, it's not my thing. It's not in the same league of like, oh my god, must see, like must stay up until midnight to watch it type things, like WandaVision was. But I'm really enjoying. I think episode 2 was a great leap forward in the story. I think right now the stuff they're doing with the fake Captain America, if you will, is really really compelling. Probably the driving force. Conner, I'll give the floor to you in just a minute because you kind of have to lay the groundwork for your thoughts on the show in general. But really quick, Dragon, what do you think of this episode?
I love this episode so much.
Oh boy! I'm just gonna preface, Conner, get ready, strap in, buddy, because Blue Dragon 5 is a big Cap fan, and when Cap related stuff gets done well, he's gonna point out about it. So strap in for that. Go ahead, Dragon.
Thanks for warning the guest about me, Tiki. That makes me feel so great. Anyway,
no, I'm just saying, like I'm just really like you are very much the Captain America guy around these parts. So
anyway, I think this episode really confirms to me the show's making the right story calls. I love how we're kind of building up a U.S. agent. The whole John Walker of it all. We introduced. I think we introduced him really well, and we're setting things up really well, especially with him particularly. You get some. We actually have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in the episode together this time.
What a concept!
Get to see their dynamic in full bloom, which I've been looking forward to. It's a lot of fun, as you can kind of tell by our little image here. And so far this continues to be everything I dreamed of, and a little bit more. So yeah, a lot of fun. So I'm happy as a clam yet again. Episode 2.
All right, just to put some context to our relationship here with Captain America, with Dragon and I, Winter Soldier, Dragon. It's fair to say that's not just your favorite MCU movie. That's like one of your all-time favorite movies, right?
I do love it quite a bit. I mean, when we did that decades list, Deadpool and Winter Soldier were the top 2 for me. So,
for me, it's like I really like it, but it's not one I'm compelled to go back to all that much, and so that's kind of like one of the kind of a big driving point in our tastes. Anyways, Conner, what is your take on this series, just kind of as a whole, so far?
I think it's interesting that I spent an hour and a half talking about this on Geekvolution, and now I'm here talking about it here, all in the same day. Because
I'm very
I
sorry about that.
no, that's just the way it happened. I agreed to both of them independently, and then I realized they were on the same day, and I went, well, that's just the way it
Much like
happened.
Falcon, Conner is an independent contractor.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
I think the show is still yet to win me over. I guess I can't just talk about this show in a vacuum because this is, kind of carrying on the Captain America legacy post Endgame. So it is still operating in that same corner of the Marvel universe that Winter Soldier and Civil War were operating in. I think Winter Soldier is great. I really like that movie. I seem to like it a little bit more every time I watch it. I have not seen it in years, but I really enjoy that movie, and I think that Civil War is probably my favorite Marvel movie. Um, as a matter of fact, I would definitely call it my favorite Marvel movie. I really love that movie. And so I was mildly excited for this movie. I was more excited for WandaVision and some other stuff that wasn't related to previous Marvel projects. But I mean, I like Anthony Mackie as Falcon. I think Winter Soldier kind of sucks, but hey, you know what? If he's getting his whole show, then maybe I can finally have a chance to like him. And so far, it this show has mostly been that first episode was kind of about catching you up on where those guys are in their lives, and then this episode is kind of more taking the ball and running with it. And I think it might be running in too many different directions at once because I think between Bucky being mad at Sam about carrying on legacy and Sam just trying to do his job, and then on top of that you have John Walker coming into the picture, and then you have the Flag Smashers, and then you have uh, uh, some other more personal stuff going on between the whatever conflict is going on and the characters, and internal conflict and external conflicts. I think that uh, we are where we should be by the end of episode 2 out of 6. But I think having pretty much the bulk of the drama and conflict and action happening in this episode
Mhm.
makes for something that's a little exhausting, to be honest. Where not that that's inherently bad, but I think that of the real estate we've gotten, um, this show has been playing out more like a traditional TV show than WandaVision was, where WandaVision, while it did have the sitcom thing going every episode, those episodes were different lengths, and they you would have some developments happen uh, in a non-traditional way where you could have like a big development happen at the beginning of an episode or in the middle of an episode. These feel more structured like a traditional TV show, and I think that in that way, I think the first episode didn't, I don't think, had enough going on, and I would say this episode might arguably have too much going
Mhm.
on. So I think across the two of them there's just the right amount going on. uh,
Release the Connor cut.
yeah.
Just re-edit. Just
Get that
re-edit it
Nielson
in.
rating. Darn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Connor, that's actually a really really good point you just made. I honestly think all the content that we've gotten into so far, for the most part, there's a couple things I can definitely nitpick. But I think it's all good stuff. I really think that episode one very much was kind of like outside of that initial action set piece. Like I really think it was a mistake to not have Sam and Bucky together in at least one scene in episode one. I really think that a smart move on Disney's part would have at the very least been to release these two episodes together, because I think releasing the first episode and not having Sam and Bucky together at all, and honestly not really having a ton of momentum, it, like, to me it almost, like, I don't want to say it was a momentum killer, but I definitely think this episode, I do kind of agree with Connor. I would say, if anything, I would cut out of this episode, I would cut out the Flag Smasher stuff, or at least the actually getting screen time with Memphis Nest, and for the foreseeable future, I will refuse to call her anything but Memphis Nest.
Yeah, let's just screw Aaron Kellyman. Forget her.
No, look,
according to
Conner,
Tiki, she doesn't
I
matter.
absolutely agree that I just think it's funny that the characters are so very similar to me. So
Come on,
similar.
this is a big step up from Memphis Nest. Come on.
I don't know. I don't know though, Dragon. I don't
Memphis
know.
Nest was a mask and a pirate. That's about it.
I don't know how good this character is though, because we haven't really seen all that much of it yet. But you're
I know,
right.
we're only on part 2 of 6.
All right, but I'm just saying, in the screen presence that she's gotten in so far, it's very Memphis Nest-like. I don't know what to tell you, but anyways, yeah, I don't know. I think a couple edits that you could have made here. I definitely think, like I said, you could have very much had at least one scene, or maybe ended with Bucky confronting Sam or something in episode 1. I just think episode 1 just kind of like, when I got to the end of episode 1, I literally just had kind of like, oh really, it's ending here? Okay, like, all right, we didn't even get the title characters meeting up. And I also very much think that I very much agree. I'm pretty sure Cap brought this up, that I think a perfect cold open for the whole show would have been the cold open to this episode. I think that would have been a hell of a mission statement. And I love the cold open for this episode. And let's just jump right into talking about how, because I think this is one thing the three of us can agree on, is that U.S. Agent is, at least for the time, it's pretty damn good, right? We can all at least agree on that.
Oh yeah, I loved all the U.S. Agent stuff so much.
I'm a big fan of the actor here. It's
Wyatt
Russell. I don't know if you guys have seen any of his other. I've seen him in 3 other movies, I think, and I've liked him in all of them. He was in 22 Jump Street.
Yeah, for sure.
He was the frat guy that Channing Tatum gets buddy with, and he was in a movie called Everybody Wants Some, which, if you have not seen it, you absolutely should. It's a 1980s college movie. It was made in 2016, but it's a Richard Linklater movie, so it's a lot more deep and thoughtful than typical kind of college sex comedy. And then you have he was also in Overlord, which was like that movie that was going to be a Cloverfield movie, but that was pretty solid action flick, and he was great in it. And I'm glad he has sort of the MCU pedestal to be standing on right now, because I think he absolutely is perfectly cast. I really like, he kind of has that cold stare, but he also does have like a cool charisma. He's very much his father's son in terms of screen presence. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to be coming. I like what he's brought so far, and I'm really excited to see what he brings in the future.
Well, little fun fact: Wyatt Russell auditioned to be Captain America during the first Avenger.
Oh, that's cool.
It's all relative. See, all came back.
I think that Wyatt Russell, the casting here, I honestly think is genuinely like Robert Downey Jr. levels of taking the personal elements of the actor and using them when casting them. Because obviously with Wyatt Russell, you look at the first thing you think of is like, oh, that's Kurt Russell's son.
Legacy of Americana.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, this dude is like pretty much living the life of his character to a certain extent. And I think that's great. That's very Robert Downey Jr.-esque. Go ahead, Dragon.
I was going to say, so, as you guys know, going into this, since the first episode, we got a little snippet of Walker at the very end. It's like, I went into this show, only I knew about John Walker, about U.S. Agent, because he was my most anticipated element going into this series. Along with Zemo, but I mean, let's face it. I mean, we know Zemo's coming. Always going to look awesome. It's just a matter of time. But I mean, U.S. Agent though. But they kept throwing this one scene at us, and we finally got that scene, and it was even better than like the little tease, because all we knew was he was going to run on a football field at one time.
Yes.
All we knew. All we knew. Well, we got to see that scene in context. In context, it is it's a wonderful introduction. We have him doing of course, just wonderful pun, the whole "Good morning, America." Of course, plus the Disney tie-in of it all, the ABC.
The one thing I wanted to see in this episode that I didn't get was like, I don't know, some sort of like super cringe, like modern day dubstep version of the Star Spangled Man.
Oh man!
No, but speaking of that, it's really great because they're doing the all American thing as much as they can, even going over the top with it, but wonderfully so. Where it's like, hey, we've taken the high school probable high school football star back to his high school, and
I did like that. That was a nice touch.
And the marching band is playing a version of the Star Spangled Man with a plan, which is great. And again, here's what I love: it's perfect and it's awesome, but not just that; it's thematically very appropriate. And that's what I was already loving with the episode. Like, how can they make this show any better than that first one? Like, oh my god, they did it already. Thematically, it's this fascinating take on U.S. Agent, where essentially he is in Steve Rogers' shoes in First Avenger, where he just wants to do the job, much like Steve Rogers, but to do that, he's got to play the propaganda game. He's got.
I was super, super concerned. My one concern with him was that it was just going to be like, all right, kids, you like Homelander? Here's more Homelander. And they didn't go that way at all. And I'm so glad.
Not that way couldn't have worked, but so far they went the more interesting route.
No, I was really like hardcore. Like, I'm really glad that we're back in this kind of like, all right, like week to week speculation time, baby. But this past week, I was all kinds of like, oh God, I really hope that he's like genuinely a good guy underneath. And that seems to be what we're going with. I'm going to be disappointed if we pull out some sort of twist villain. And it's like, no, I'm actually evil the whole time.
I got a big theory about U.S. Agent. About what we're going with them.
All right.
Very straightforward theory. Want me to get into it now or save it for later?
You can get into it now because I don't want to spend a ton of time on speculation.
All right, sure. Okay, so here's where I think we're going. I think U.S. Agent on the whole is that, again, he's pretty, seems like, pretty good-hearted, but not right for the job. But, he seems, again, he wants to do the job without having to live down the legacy, which one of the great parts about this, that's like the perfect parallel between him and Sam. He's basically living Sam's nightmare of like all the pressure and all, like, you have to live up to the legacy and you got to be in the limelight. You got to be the poster boy. You got to play by the rules. That's exactly what Sam's kind of worried about. And I think where we're going with this is that in this power broker story, eventually, as it goes in the comics, he does get a super soldier serum. He does have abilities. So I think the power broker, and we know the power broker presumably is responsible for these super soldiers in some way, shape, or form. So I think at some point he's going to make a choice, a big character choice, and he's going to want a super soldier serum to make him like Captain America. Because we saw this episode, he's going to get his butt kicked a little bit because, again, lack of super soldier serum. And I think there's going to be a point where he's going to make the choice. He's probably going to sneak a serum away from these guys. Maybe him and Battlestar, they're going to get some, and then that's going to start amping up the moral ambiguity of U.S. Agent, where essentially he's kind of an anti-hero in a sense, and that he does mean well. But he's taken on a few names over the years like Super Patriot. You can kind of see where it's going. He's going to get into that kind of like gray space, and I think the legacy is going to kind of drive him nuts.
As long as we don't make it like some sort of like tired like steroids metaphor or something like that, then I'm down for that.
No, not steroids, but it's just going to give.
I'm just saying we've been down that road before with like like the super powered substance and like he it's a good natured guy, but he takes too much of it and then he gets all aggro. I don't want to see that.
Well, what I mean is it's going to be the violation of the credo of Captain America, where again what we spend so much time with in First Avengers, it's about the man who takes the serum, not the serum itself. And it's the whole remain a good man. It's going to magnify what's already there. Like, you're a good man. Johann Schmidt was a terrible person, therefore he got a red skull. Gotcha. Magnifying the evil there, and I think essentially he's going to be focusing on living up to Captain America, where he's going to erase himself. And Sam does not need a super soldier serum; he never gets a serum. Therefore, again, that's just the man persisting before it is like the accoutrements. Like Captain America has to be strong, has to throw a shield, he's got to be in red, white, and blue. Those are the requirements.
All right. So speaking of super soldiers, guys, Conner, this was where I was really feeling your point about too much. Honestly, like. Oh my God! It's like suddenly we go from like there's like a few super soldiers in this MCU to like you get a super soldier serum and you get a super soldier serum.
We've added 9 super soldiers in one episode.
Yeah, I thought that was a little much. I mean, maybe if you wanted to have like a super soldier that they're going up against, like I could vibe with that.
Well, we almost had 5 more in Civil War, but they all got killed.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one thing I really like about Civil War is that you think it's building up to Zemo's gonna release 5 super soldiers, 5 winter soldiers, and then subversion. They're all dead. He killed them, and then it turns out he doesn't want the super soldiers. He just wants he wants them all dead because he hates superheroes. And I really liked that. And this, and so for a moment when I was watching Civil War for the first time, and they said, "You think Bucky was the only winter soldier?" I was like, "Oh, that's a twist." But then I also thought, I don't know. I don't want to see him fight like 5 super soldiers. And they didn't. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm getting exactly what I want. And then this feels like it's this sort of reveal is for the people who did want the fight with the 5 super soldiers in Civil War. So while I don't think it's inherently a bad idea, it is like a part
I think there's
that
just
like,
too many of them. That's what I think it comes
Well,
down
it doesn't bother me because again, we need odds for our guys to go up against. We're okay. What's the thing? We already have Bucky, who essentially is Hydra's version of Captain America, of a super soldier. Which, again, as you can do that without having the exact formula. Now, again, the only way, as we saw in this episode, I think the point we're building to, maybe perhaps with that U.S. agent arc, perhaps assuming they go that way, is again, none of our guys are really prepared to go up against this. We've outnumbered them, so Bucky can't just save the day single-handedly. And it's the fact that none of our guys, they can't go toe-to-toe with these guys. It's not like Captain America versus the Red Skull. It's a challenge to overcome. And again, proof that it's the man, not the serum. I think that's I think that's what we're building to why we're bothering with all these. Hence, we're doing the power broker and multiple super soldiers. I don't know. I think we're going somewhere with it.
I just think that I honestly think that if the end game of the show was like a fight with like an army of super soldiers, then that would be one thing. But like, I feel like since we've already seen 5 of them, if they are building up to like an army of them, then I honestly feel like they kind of blew their load a little bit in this episode. Like I said, I feel like a perfect compromise would have been like 1 or 2 at the start, because I like the whole idea of like, all right, like we got the different factions where it's like, we have Bucky on one side, who's obviously the super soldier. The other side has a super soldier. And then we have Isaiah, who we'll get into very quickly here, but he's kind of represents the history of the. I just think like going full blown, like having so many of them just in the second episode almost kind of like diminishes the impact of having more of them than just Bucky, if that makes sense.
Well, I doubt they're going to last till the very end. We already killed 1 off in this episode, and I think the idea is maybe we're going to replace those with your John Walkers and your Battlestars potentially. Then that's kind of where it's going to end up being like that. Maybe Carly is going to be like the main one at the end.
Fair enough. So let's talk Isaiah. I thought that was a very, very interesting character moment. Really kind of fleshed out the kind of the background of the MCU a little bit. I love when we dive into the history bits of the MCU, and this was kind of an interesting kind of like darker shade of it.
Isaiah Bradley was probably the biggest geek out moment. Like when he showed up, it was amazing.
I'm approaching all these shows from like such a casual perspective that pretty much like the only the only stuff I react to is like, oh, Agatha, I've heard other people speculate about that name before. This was a completely new character to me, but that's okay.
As he's going to be for a lot of people. I'm sure no one really knows about Isaiah Bradley.
I'm the voice of the casual audience.
Oh no, I'm the same way, Tiki.
Okay, cool.
When they're like, we're gonna go see Isaiah, and it's like it's Isaiah Bradley, and I'm like, oh okay.
Right.
And then my brother was like,
I don't want to say I wasn't geeking out about like the I thought it was a cool scene conceptually, but yeah.
I was just watching like a normal scene where they're talking to some dude. I'm like, oh.
And honestly, really cool. Connor, I feel like I kind of, in some ways, get more out of these shows that way because I can just like kind of like focus on what's the context of the scene instead of just like, oh, that's not how it is in the comic books.
My brother, though, who works at a comic book shop, he's like paid to know about these things. He's like, "That's Isaiah Bradley. He's related to the Young Avengers." He starts like going on. Like, oh, cool, nice. And then on top of that, like, there was another, like, for example, like, I don't know who U.S. Agent was, and so I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, so we got a new Captain America, and then it wasn't until like yesterday when I was scrolling around online when a lot of people were talking about specifically U.S. Agent, and I was like, why are people calling him this? He's the new Captain America. Like,
oh, he started off as Cap before he turned into U.S. Agent in the book.
And
too, so
I realized after some research, I found that out. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing now.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. I mean, there was a little bit of speculation that, hey, the Carl Lumbly's in this. You know who'd be perfect as in kind of a Captain America related role would be Isaiah Bradley. But here's the cool thing. I read, just knowing that Bradley may or may not show up, I finally read this age old Captain America story. It's really good. It was really divisive when it came out. I recommend everyone check it out if you're fascinated by the Isaiah Bradley stuff. It's called Truth, Red, White, and Blue. What it's called. It's going to you probably find it better digitally than you're going to be able to get your hands on, because again, I don't know if it's sold out because of this. It came out in 2003. It's been a while. Probably hard to get your hands on physically, but it's great. It's not for the faint of heart though. It's a grim story. It's about the idea and pretty much what we have here, but kind of retrofit to the MC. But I think all smart calls were made there. It works really well. It actually works probably a little better, but to an extent, where essentially works pretty much the same here, is that they tried to replicate the super soldier serum after Cap went in the ice, and they kind of replicated it with basically they took 300 black soldiers back then. The way in the comic worked, 300 black soldiers, and it was like paralleled the Tuskegee kind of experiments, which essentially did some horrible tests with penicillin back in the 40s, I think. On black people, and essentially like there were only very few survivors, and those survivors turned into super soldiers, and just horrible stuff happened to them, and then we railroaded them horribly, and we kind of essentially did that to Bradley here, only with the Korean War, and he actually had to run it with the Winter Soldier. He kicked the crap out of him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But seriously, Lumbly's a great actor. Of course, Martian Manhunter from the Justice League and Justice League animated series, the DCAU, and he popped up in Supergirl for a nice little role there as Martian Manhunter's father, a little legacy role there. But seriously, I just think we fit him in perfectly. And what enticed me so much, he's my second favorite part of the episode behind the John Walker stuff, is that Sam learning about this for the first time. We're kind of taking it to a neighborhood, and Sam goes in there, like have a nice kind of build up, and like they're kind of deflating because again you're wondering, are we going here? But as you're walking there, it's like, hey, Black Falcon. No, it's just Falcon. Well,
I really dug that moment.
I just love everything in the Baltimore section, because you have that, you have the Isaiah Bradley bombshell, and then you have like how can it ramp up from here? Then we have the real world encroaching in. So it's just this great kind of 1, 2, 3 punch of kind of a moment in the episode.
I'm a fan of the racial component of the show so far. I think that might be the most compelling stuff, because they're able to approach things like unconscious biases and and concepts like privilege without having to be like have people talk about it like in a very direct, obvious way. Like that part where they're talking in the first episode where they're talking to the loan officer,
the bank scene, man. I love that bank scene.
And then in this with like the police, like there is that question in your head of, is this a racial thing? And like while we do have like an answer, you're not sure whether or not the racial component is a factor or not. And I think that is a very realistic way of portraying that. And I think that they've done a very, responsible job of handling that. And I've been very impressed by that aspect.
And to me, and I guess we'll find out as it goes forward, and just to also loop in one of the big parts of the Bradley thing I think we're going for, is that this episode kind of starts to broach the issue directly from Bucky to Sam once they have their little group therapy session. That why didn't Sam keep the shield. And I think what we've been doing with that stuff, with the bank and with this, is that I think just going into it, just, we know in the comics, Sam Wilson, the government didn't want Sam to become Captain America. Now we're kind of doing that here, and we kind of saw some shady things of like, hey, he put in the Smithsonian, but it didn't stay there, and they didn't ask him about it. They just took that. You're doing the right thing, Sam. There are a lot of real shady business going on here, and I feel, what we're doing, I think the point of the Bradley stuff at the end of the day is going to be after his world's been rocked, oh my God, there was a black Captain America. And the world never knew about it, is that he's afraid, I think on some level he's afraid if he became, the official black Captain America, there would have been a lot of scrutiny on him along with just the already living up to Steve Rogers alone, then may potentially tainting that with like a divisive world, especially post-blip and everything, where you're going to have all sorts of people coming back who maybe weren't there before. It's going to be, so I just love like all these factors. And I think I'm hoping we get Bradley. I'm convinced we're going to get Bradley one more time. In a perfect world, we're going to get Bradley one more time, and one flashback to the young Captain America days. I really want that so badly.
Yeah,
so
and I like how when Falcon is talking to Bucky afterwards, and they're talking, that's when he does finally explicitly acknowledge the race. Where he's like, there was a black super soldier years ago, and I didn't know about it. That's like covering up history, and that's it's sort of it's literally whitewashing history, and I think that's a cool thing that they're able to address in the show, and I like how the Black Falcon comedy bit is right before that. So they're able to kind of foreshadow something with comedy that is not comedic at all. So that's cool.
I just loved it so much. And again, not only did he get just hidden by history, I mean, again, in prison for 30 years, and while he was in prison, both the government, probably S.H.I.E.L.D. and or Hydra at that point, we know eventually landed, Hydra's taken his blood, probably S.H.I.E.L.D. aka is Hydra at that time. It's can't trust anybody, just this poor guy. And I'm sure we're going to have a scene where, because Falcon didn't say a word to Bradley in this scene, that these two have to have a conversation later in this show. They have to. Plus, Bradley knows something, so we got to get that from later. Also, fun fact, people are really happy about this. We introduced his grandson in this episode, and his grandson goes on to become a Young Avenger. His grandson becomes Patriot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
So when they do the Young Avengers, like the new Hawkeye and the Miss Marvel and all sorts of stuff like that, he's probably going to be in the lineup. And I hope my fear, I don't think they're going this way. My fear is that we just kind of did a placeholder casting, or kind of like Cassie Lang in Endgame versus we're going to recast her like Catherine Newton or somebody, player in the third Ant-Man. I hope it's not just placeholder casting. I hope we're going to stick with this kid, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So 32 minutes in, let's actually talk about the dynamic that this show is based around, shall we? Bucky and Falcon. It's interesting because I watched the episode twice, and the second time around, I thought the banter went from I'm really liking this, I'm really enjoying this, to I don't know, maybe this is a little bit too quippy for my taste. The therapy scene is really funny in concept. I don't really think it holds a lot of water on the rewatch, if I'm being completely honest with you. Just because it honestly kind of feels like one of those scenes where the actors are just kind of sitting down and improvising with each other. Not that those scenes can't be fun, but I don't know. I kind of find that kind of style of comedy, it's not my general taste. I don't know. I just feel like maybe these two kind of I get the tension with Bucky in terms of Sam handing over the shield and everything. I like that. I think that's palatable. I just feel like this whole the old married couple dynamic that they're going with, I feel like maybe they're striking it a little bit too on the nose. I don't know. It almost kind of feels a little bit off from Civil War, where they're giving Steve the thumbs up and stuff like that, and they're pretty buddy in that movie.
They weren't necessarily. They were not buddy in that movie. Tiki, come on.
Not buddy, but buddy's not the wrong.
Because remember, that's the whole. And this is what we're carrying over here. This is what everyone's forgetting about. Is that again, Bucky tried to kill Falcon. in Winter Soldier, and then that's kind of where they're operating from is the start of their relationship in
Okay,
Civil
that's
War.
fair.
And then they didn't really have time to talk during the whole Infinity Saga, so this is like them kind of like now getting used to a world where now they're kind of their buffer zone is
I
now
mean, it is
gone.
interesting. It is one of the things about the show that I do think is a nice kind of like, exploration of a dynamic is, kind of like the whole like, well, the friend of the friend, like,
Exactly.
so
Plus,
yeah,
I mean, I try to avoid the marketing on this after the first trailer
same.
because again, I'm so looking forward to the show. But again, like sometimes they play those stupid ads in front of videos before you can hit the skip button. And I got one bit from this episode, but I was happy, kind of hyped me for the episode though. It was just this one little bit where, Falcon's going down the stairs, about to go on the mission, and says, "You shouldn't have given away the shield." Nice to see you too, Bucky. It's like I was so hyped for that because I was like, yes, that's a logical reunion. That makes all the sense in the world because he would be peeved at him for the Shield debacle, especially after U.S. Agent. So I love that.
Yeah.
That's the perfect logical starting place for him. And again, we know that Bucky's been dodging Sam's calls because. Because again, he gave up the shield in the first place, which we had our big end game of. That was the beginning of our friendship, man. And now that's gone. And now, of course, this John Walker thing is what really brings them together now, because now they actually have a reason. That's why I'm not bothered by the whole separation episode one, because when we got to know them together, now we have a logical reason to bring them back together in each other's lives, because now they have a reason to talk, and again, they kind of come together over the legacy of Steve Rogers and where that leaves them, and with the banter and with kind of like, so Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, they've always famously, they have like they're offset, they're wonderfully buddy, and they have really great banter and dynamics, and I love that we've taken that. And again, we kind of flirted with it in Civil War, but more like they're kind of taking shots at each other, which they like to, kind of roast each other all the time during these interviews. That's kind of where that's being channeled as well, which really came into vogue during Civil War, those press junkets and interviews and what have you. And what I love is we've taken that, and with that therapy scene especially, we've taken it, but now we've added kind of a dramatic context that was not there before. With once the truth really comes out about why Bucky's so bothered by it, because if Steve was wrong about Sam, then he was wrong about Bucky. And Bucky's whole identity is about Steve having hope that his friend was still in there, that he's not just this brainwashed Hydra killing machine. So I love that that's there. And again, the other side of it, we're going to get hopefully through the Isaiah Bradley stuff, or just with Sam as we go through our narrative, possibly parallel to John Walker, what have you, whatever. But I love there's like that little that sliver of kind of connecting drama between the comedy and between that we got through that really hilarious, like, they're locking knees and everything. They're doing the soul stare. It's,
Yeah, I feel like, okay, so I just don't really like Bucky.
Which I don't get, but that's your opinion. So
I mean, I feel like everybody likes him, and that's cool.
I'm kind of in the middle where it's like I'm kind of like I'm just sort of neutral on him. He's never ever been like one of my top favorite MCU characters, but he's never really bothered me either.
I feel like what I hear a lot of people talk, like, I don't see what other people see in him, and
I love the dynamic between Steve and Bucky personally,
and I don't mean to be like ascribing, what people are seeing, but if I had to take a guess, it comes across to me like a lot of people project their own like stuff onto Bucky as opposed to looking at what's there, because what I get out of Bucky is he's just kind of sad, and that's it. He's sad. Like, okay, I get it. Like, his body was used against his will to commit horrible crimes. Like, yeah, obviously he's gonna be sad, but it's like I don't really know anything about him other than he's sad. And I mean, I think Sebastian Stan is a very talented actor. I mean, anybody who has seen I, Tonya, he's great. But it's like I feel like he's kind of straddled with a character where all he has to do is just kind of sit with his head looking down and a frown on his face, and that's his character. It's like I don't really know what to do with that. And then so having him, and so like basically with this show, they're kind of having him start from scratch is basically it, where we had him in like the same gear for like 5 movies in a row. So like, I don't know, like I understand what Bucky means to Cap, but like Bucky on his own, I have no idea who this guy really is other than a sad person, and and it wouldn't really bother me so much if so much of like say Civil War and Winter Soldier and he has like a little subplot running through Black Panther and Infinity War and like all that stuff. It's like so much stuff is happening around him and to him, and it seems like I'm supposed to be like seeing some kind of rehabilitation throughout those movies, and I don't really know anything about him to understand if he is feeling rehabilitated. I don't know. I'm not in his head at all. And then we get to this, and it feels like all of that progress he supposedly made over those movies has not meant anything. And so it's like now he's making amends, and it's like, okay, cool. We're basically starting from scratch here. And then I feel like then when he has like interactions with Falcon and like this kind of banter, it sounds like people who have been on years of press junkets together, kind of grilling each other, and they barely know each other as characters though. So it's like I feel like that kind of dynamic feels a little confused, and I feel like when we do get into an action sequence, like I think Bucky is like a little out of character for a person who's like a soldier and spent years being a passenger in his own body as he's watched himself be an assassin. It's like you'd think he'd gather intel from that of why don't we sit back, handle this stealthily, see where they're heading, and then we attack them. But he's like, no, let's take them now.
Yeah,
and so, like, I don't get why he's doing that. And then I don't know, he sort of feels a little nerfed where he's like using his metal arm to try to stop a truck and it's not stopping a truck for some reason. I don't know. So I feel like the Bucky character has just kind of been done dirty over these movies, and we finally have a chance to like give him like a real character now. And I feel like these first two episodes haven't really done a whole lot to progress that character, but I do think after that therapy session when he finally does talk about his like kind of how his entire character, like it's like the show acknowledges his entire character was rooted in Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's feeling some inadequacy about, questioning whether or not Steve was right. Now he has to sort of like prove to himself that he's like capable of doing things. And then the episode ends. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe moving forward, I can start to like Bucky now. But as of right now, it's still kind of operating under the Bucky I'm not a big fan of.
Okay.
Well, I don't disagree. Well, I disagree with most of that, pretty much all of it. But let me. Conner, let's just a few
cut and
things.
dry,
Okay?
Dragon. Cut and dry.
Okay, but Conner, let me just ask them, because I keep hearing you make the sad point, but where exactly is he just a sad character to you? Just for a moment here, okay? Because think about it. If you break it down within the MCU, okay, Winter Soldier, obviously that doesn't count because he's the Winter Soldier. He's very murder happy in that one. Civil War, we're fixing him, and again you have the friendship stuff, and again troubled when the Tony Stark angle comes into play. So I don't really think you count that, would you? As the sad. Why would you count as well,
oh my God, Dragon!
It's a serious moment though. What's wrong with sad Bucky's trouble?
Well, no, I think they're able to get away with it in Civil War, because of how it's like Cap is vulnerable, and that's again his entire character is like a service to Cap.
Yeah.
As his own though, like Cap is like, Bucky, I love you, Bucky, we're gonna help you out, Bucky, and he's like, okay. I'm sad. Hey, Bucky, remember when we were done?
Come on, that's okay. That's come on, that's
like,
it was
okay. And then Iron Man's like, hey, you killed my parents, and he's like,
he was willing to.
He didn't mean it. It wasn't him. And so like I feel like Cap's doing all the talking for Bucky.
Right,
Bucky
honestly,
stands there and looks sad.
I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm not the biggest Cap fan in the world. I honestly think these are some good points.
No, these are not.
I like Captain America.
I feel like the strength of the Bucky character lies more in, like Connor saying, his, it's always very much been like, oh, but Steve believes in him, and it's always been so connected to Steve. I really feel like he is he's kind of a very auxiliary. Like, I honestly feel like tonally, characterization wise, he's been a little all over the place in the MCU. If I'm
How has he
being,
been all over the place? It's been a straight line.
he's been all over the place in terms of like from movie to movie. I mean, it's a straight line in terms of arc, but I feel like movie to movie, his personality can. I don't know. It just feels like I mean I do agree with it. He's a little bit mopey, and then like the white wolf thing. I don't really think that it feels like they built that up a lot, and it didn't really have a ton of payoff.
All right, look, okay, he's mopey in like a sad scene in Civil War. He sees what Steve's been throwing away for him. Basically, the whole Avengers is kind of split in two, and then he's kind of faced with the fact that he killed Tony's parents, and he's like willing to die in those scenes. And again, like Cap's trying to fight for his friend's life because it wasn't his fault. So, and then look,
I feel like
he has one scene in Black Panther at the end, and then he's at peace, so he's happy, Bucky, by the time we get to Infinity War and all that. So there's your happy.
Conner, congratulations. This is your first taste of doing a Disney debate on this channel. This is what you're in for, buddy.
I'm saying that
when I saw Black Panther and it was over and it was like he is the White Wolf, I saw a guy who looked depressed because he had one arm walking around with looking like Jesus, and I was like, oh, I guess he's still sad. I don't know.
I kind of agree.
Come on, you can't really make he's still sad just after one scene. He's kind of at peace, just walking around with one arm.
To me, he looked sad, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to that look being glazed on his face. I don't know. If you saw,
I think overall, what I'm saying is I don't think we've had enough time to make an informed. He's just a sad character like decision. Then we get to this where he's kind of working his way out of the sadness, trying to figure out things. I think it's less sad; it's more contemplative, Conner. I think that's overall is kind of the point I'm trying to make here is contemplating the next step and moving forward without Steve, which is hard.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head sort of there. It was like we haven't spent a whole lot of time with him, and he's been in like 5 movies though.
Yeah,
we need to, like I feel like I should know the character more than I don't know. I guess he's just sad.
Yes, 2 of these movies had more than 20. Actually, 3 of these movies had more than like 20 characters in them, though.
But like okay, for example, in Civil War, I can track in Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. I can track Wanda throughout those 3. As like there's a character going on there where she is happy, she is hopeful, she has to make a sacrifice gets taken away from her, and then she's like really upset, and then we got WandaVision and we're like, oh hey, cool, that's a great trajectory for, like, say, for that character. And like I could do the same for Vision, but those 2 characters are kind of tied together. But I feel like with other characters in those movies, I can draw like even though they're not in it a whole lot, like we hit the broad strokes where I can understand like what their arc looks like. With Bucky, it's like, well, I'll take Cap's word for it. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't want to get bogged down just going through like the arc of Bucky.
Allow me to break the tension, if you will, Dragon. Conner, I'm sorry, you're not going to get this reference. This is an old school in joke in the channel, but Bucky's so sad. Wow, that didn't even get a chuckle out of Dragon. He's really taking this seriously.
hey, look.
Dragon's usually a sucker for the so really sad.
I know a lot of people who really love Bucky, and that's awesome. I'm glad people like Bucky. I'm glad they can relate to a character, or they can like really connect with a character. That's cool. I don't, and those are my reasons.
All right. Look, Conner, I want to be clear. I'm not judging you harshly on any of this. I want to be clear. I don't want it to come across that.
This is the fun. This is the fun.
Yeah, I mean, I saw an arc there. You didn't. I mean, that's where it is. It's what it is. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways, regardless, I don't think all.
This is the internet. God damn it! We all need to have exactly the same opinion on everything.
It's like when I see it, I see it as, again, it's Bucky got his senses back, Cap got his buddy back, and lost him at the end of Infinity War, and by the end, Bucky gets closure with Steve as he goes off, and he kind of knows that he's over there waiting to hand the shield off. Like they get closure. That's kind of that's how I view the arc. But that's where it is now. He's moving on, but regardless, probably so should we. But let's talk about something that I think hopefully we can agree on. That the truck fight was pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like when U.S. Agent showed up and like his
Yeah.
sidekick got knocked off, and so he like uses the shield. As
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I know it's great. Also, death of Redwing. There's some speculation. Some people speculate that if Redwing doesn't come back, if he doesn't get rebuilt, like again, you can always rebuild him. But if he doesn't get rebuilt, perhaps the new Falcon will be named Redwing in place of just calling him Falcon. Torres, the kid from the first episode. Remember, like Falcon's buddy.
Yeah,
They should
don't really have a ton of stock in that, but
they should.
I'm just saying, I heard the theory. It's kind of.
I think they should call the drone Redwing, and when they give, if there is a new Falcon, they should call him Drone. That'll be his name.
I do kind of like that, like with US Agent, pretty much the only reason why he's even valuable in a fight is because of the shield.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So again, we're giving the shield even more importance with the legacy angle. So again, that's
right.
And saving people too, which again that is the legacy. It's kind of saving and helping people with that shield.
Also, how long does this take? What is the time jump between Falcon giving the Smithsonian the shield and then them unveiling John Walker?
Well, we know there was like a press tour for him, so I mean, I don't know how long it usually takes. So maybe I don't know, maybe at least a month, I guess. I mean,
that press junket, or that Good Morning America interview, like it's showing him training with the shield.
Exactly. So time has passed. I can't tell you. All I know is it's the whole show is 6 months after Endgame, and then the press junket he had to train. I don't know how long it took him to get so proficient in that thing. I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 months if I were to put it to the max.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Should we talk about Memphis Nest?
Sure, let's talk about the Flag Smashers. So it looks like she's
God. Nest music.
I honestly don't even really like outside of the whole like, okay, we need to get Zemo in there. I honestly don't really think that we even need to focus too heavily on this side of the series yet. But I mean, what we got was like, I just do not. I get what Disney's trying to do with this actress, kind of have like the unassuming thing. I'm not buying it. I don't buy it. I don't buy that this actress, like, she does not have a screen presence to me. I'm sorry.
My brother has a similar thing. He just, as he said, I know it's rude to say this, but I just hate her face. And I'm like, hey now, bro. I think she's just kind of been miscast as like the assuming but strong leader.
It's a really weird typecast. It really
is. It is.
Well, that's kind of the point, though. It's all anonymity. It's the unassuming upstarts with strong opinions that could lead to trouble. That's the.
Yeah, and I get that, and like I just think that like I want to see this actress play something else,
right?
Because I think that it's a kind of an interesting dynamic to strike as an actress where you do need to look sort of unassuming, but you sort of need to like put on a little bit of a show where like somewhere below there you can buy that they're strong enough to lead a group. And I was talking with Captain Logan about this on Geekvolution, and he was saying that like maybe like her words and how she's able to communicate with people online is where her strength comes from.
Possibly.
And he brought up a good point where I have a hard time really like you were saying, Tiki, like her screen presence isn't like this very charismatic like black hole of like all your attention goes straight to her, but maybe like she is the kind of the head honcho villain right now, because as we're moving forward, we're going to have Zemo, we're going to have maybe some other, maybe like US Agent will be like a villain. So having like 3 really charismatic scenery chewing bad guys would be kind of the wrong way to go. And maybe her being unassuming, maybe either she's like a tier 1 villain for this, where we're going to take her out first. Maybe like Solo, we're going to have her team up with Falcon and Bucky, or maybe she's like a red herring, or like maybe her unassuming
Well, literally
nature.
a red herring.
Or maybe we're gonna have Daniel Bruhl and Wyatt Russell really hamming it up, and so our attention's on them, and then
Sure.
she was the one we were supposed to be watching all along. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of directions we can go. I'm not familiar with this actress, and I'm not like I always want to give an actress or an actor I'm unfamiliar with, like, time to impress me, and just because like we've only gotten her in like this episode, I don't want to come out too guns blazing against her, but I don't know. I'm not like immediately blown away by her.
Yeah.
I think the bigger point that we're doing with the Flag Smashers with this episode is that, again, through like as one of them gets killed by the Power Broker, which we keep hyping up, and again the source of the super soldiers, and we keep. By the way, Conner, I don't know if you know about this yet. So there's something in relation to the Power Broker I'm really dreading. It won't kill the show, but it's kind of a fan thing where it's like if they name drop this thing, it's gonna kill some hope for me. So in the comic, the Power Broker, like, there's a businessman, there's a scientist. So it's kind of a twofold thing. I'm hoping they just make it the businessman, because if they use the scientist, that'll create a problem for the Marvel Netflix of it all. If I hear the name, more importantly, if I see the guy with this name, Carl Mollis, if that name comes into play, that means Marvel Netflix is now a multiverse thing, which would kind of bum me out.
Who is that in the Marvel Netflix show?
He's the scientist in season 2 of Jessica Jones, who essentially fills the same role, where he basically creates kind of his version of super soldiers using animal DNA.
Okay, I didn't see that season. I'm trying to. That season kind of broke my heart.
Scientist with a ponytail.
Okay. Is that Jessica Jones' like dad with big quotes?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say dad, but kind of the boyfriend of her mother. So
okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, but the point being, of course, he doesn't quite make it out of that season, so to speak. So if he appears, and obviously there's kind of a problem. We can't just say we recast him unless they go out of the way and say, "Hey, we brought this guy back to life because he's really good at what he does." I don't think it's. So that will basically, if that happens, which again I'm hoping will not be the case. Again, I'll just confirm the hope that I'm really.
I mean, I still think, like, even if the Marvel Netflix stuff does technically get retconned, there's no reason why they can't just bring in a Daredevil or a Kingpin. I really don't. You know.
And we'll see. I mean, it would really muddy the waters in kind of a significant way, I feel. Anyway,
I don't think so. I don't. I mean, I feel like anyway,
I'm not saying it's like the domino. I'm saying it's going to knock down the other dominoes in that logic, the kind of chain of logic. I get what you're saying. Look, obviously, I'm just saying if people have a thread to pull. If they wait a minute, now we know for a fact it can't happen.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
I'm glad you brought up Marvel Netflix, because I think the show this actually reminds me the most of is Punisher.
I could see that.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because we did Punisher season 2 ahead of this thing.
Yeah. I remember you asked me if I'd seen Punisher a few weeks back, and
that very reason.
Yeah, and like I'm thinking about the therapy session from the first episode, like the way kind of unusual camera angles with a very shallow depth of field. There's a lot of headroom given in like some scenes, and like just a lot of the way it's like, and like we're dealing with like the military, and it's sort of an espionage thriller. It's just like kind of reminds me of the Punisher in a way.
Yeah. So I think one thing we should talk about before we get out of here is just round out some John Walker stuff, because overall, I mean, so John Walker, we mentioned, he seems really well intended, but let's talk about kind of the kind of visual thing here, which basically is where he exactly crosses the line. So we have this great scene where they're kind of walking, and it's like, "Hey, come on, guys, join us for a ride." And it's just this hilarious thing where he used to have like Bucky he just wants to punch Walker and take the shield. This whole episode, which cracks me up. He just wants to take that shield back from him, because again, as Falcon says, we can't just say, "Hey, America, I changed my mind. I want to become cap now." You can't do that. And the last time they just took the shield, Sharon Carter's on the run, which is not good. So I love that, the minute Battlestar is introduced, Battlestar is like, okay, that's it, I'm out, stop the car. That's it. I've turned into a cliche. I've turned like the partner cliche, and then calling Falcon, wingman is where that draws the line for him. But I love that up to that point, Walker is absolutely well intended. He wants to pull our resources. He wants to work together. He wants to work together. He wants to, like let's not do this usual song and dance where like you don't like us, we don't like you. I mean, I'm Captain America. Where he doesn't quite get how offensive he's being to the guys that actually knew Captain America. He thinks like, hey, I'm wearing the suit ipso facto. We're on the same team, right?
Yeah. So where do you feel like he goes over the line? What was that scene?
Well, I mean, I guess I think just the assumption that Falcon should automatically be on his team. That's with the wingman thing. That's just assuming, hey, you're in the sidekick role. Ergo, we're a package deal. Where he's looking at the legacy before he's looking at the people, which seems to be Falcon's main imperative this show.
Well, see, that's what I think is kind of interesting because I feel like Falcon is kind of. I don't know if I'd call this a criticism yet. I don't know if it's a deliberate kind of contradiction on Falcon's part, where he like cares deeply about like the legacy of the Shield, and that's why they want to like kick John Walker's ass and take his shield, and like it does sort of seem to be like there is a legacy thing where they care about the symbol, because they knew the man, and then they also. But then I don't know, like I feel like I've made half of a point and now like my train of thought has been derailed for no reason, and now I can't quite finish it. But you were saying that like for Sam it's all about like the man behind the mask, as he says it. And but I feel like his actions are kind of showing that he does care more about the symbol than maybe he leads on.
Right. No, I hear it. Yeah, too. I mean, we had that bit with Bucky too, which was great. We called back one of the most famous Captain America beats, the grenade. Of course, one of the great bits, you jump on the, jumps on the grenade. Like, have you ever jumped on a grenade? Yeah, 4 times, because he has like the reinforced helmet. He can basically just shield trick the captain at one time in Avengers. Like you pull there, you absorb the blast, which I think that perfectly illustrates the difference why John Walker's not Steve Rogers. That he puts in the effort. He's in quotes done the work, but again, he's not going to be the guy who jumps on the grenade with nothing held back. He's going to be, again, it's the new school of thinking. They want a Cap who's going to play ball with like stuff like the Accords and everything. They want the guy who's going to follow the orders. Like, for example, like to me, I think the analogy I have for John Walker is that in First Avenger, if Cap stuck to the propaganda machine and he never broke rank to save Bucky, that's John Walker, who eventually would get his shot to be in the big leagues and use the accoutrements to be a captain in the Force, which, again, Steve Rogers possibly would have been allotted had he just played ball. So that's kind of where Walker kind of walks right now. And I think, yeah.
Oh, I see. I just don't feel like we've seen enough of John Walker to know, like, we know he says, like, in training, he's, like, taken for grenades by just, like, having the reinforced helmet. But who knows? Maybe later there will be a point where he is given the opportunity to jump on a grenade and he will take it without like the reinforced helmet or whatever.
That'd be a great moment. I'm looking forward to stuff like that. That'd be great. It's entirely possible.
Like right now, I'm on Team John Walker until he's like a jerk. And
yeah, we should talk about that though. So at the end, so that's where he truly crosses the line right there. That's where he's starting. Like he says, "Come on, guys." I love that Sam. We always do this sort of thing. We kind of subvert it right here, where Sam just calls out like, guys, you're playing by kind of sort of that Accords, kind of playbook, as in you're going to have to report everything, and you're going to have people to answer to. I'm an independent contractor. He's not a soldier anymore, so you can do the things. So our team up really doesn't make much sense. I mean, we all lost that fight on that truck. If you think about it, what are we really going to gain by working together? And also, John Walker, by proxy of the government, did some shady stuff like, hey, you've tracked Redwing because he's government property. See, John Walker is not wrong. He is not wrong, but still, there's something kind of off about the guy, right? There's something like...
I feel like I just see a guy trying to do his job, and he's trying to do the best he can. He's the new guy on the beat, and everybody's just kind of like Bucky and Sam are just kind of being mean to him, and he really wants to offer his help, but he also needs to like project strength, and when he does project strength, like it kind of comes across like he's being pushy or something. I don't know. I really feel for the guy. Maybe it's because I like Wyatt Russell, but I think I think he has to like put on a level of showmanship, but I think his heart's really in the right place, and like just because they knew him, they're maybe being a little too hard on him until he does something that I think is like kind of morally mean or like not that's kind of shady. Until he starts acting like Hayward from WandaVision, that's when I think I'll take my my statement back on him. But right now, I'm on Team U.S. Agent.
I agree with you, and I just love just kind of there's that Albuquerque verse. We use this analogy all the time, the Albuquerque verse, like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, where basically you have these in Better Call Saul you have these businessmen, kind of these other lawyers who you think are just like mustache twirly bad guys at first, but then you see, oh no, they're actually being really fair about this sort of thing. I think that's where John Walker kind of fits into things right now, where again there's a complexity there. He's not wrong, but again there's something potentially there going forward. And Conner, I think you're right. Right now, he hasn't done anything truly bad. It's just like the whole he's going like they stay out of our way. That's where he's starting to draw the line of like, okay, I think this is where like the U.S. agent path is kind of being built right now. But we'll see. Absolutely, we'll see. But you're right. You're not wrong at all, Conner.
All right. Okay, guys. I think that's about a wrap. Final thoughts. I will start with Conner. What do you think? Final thoughts.
I think this episode is better than the first episode. I think it has a better momentum. I don't know. I feel like the Sam Bucky dynamic is a little off. And I think that by the end of the episode, though, I am more excited to see where it's going, especially with Zemo coming into it. But overall, I think that it's not quite as strong as WandaVision was by this point in that show, but I am willing to watch and see where it goes.
Dragon?
Again, I'm still head over heels. I just love this. I love how we're paralleling John with both Falcon and just kind of the shoes Steve Rogers kind of had to fill, kind of in kind of trudging the path in the first place. Love all that. Of course, I'm blown away by the fact we did the Isaiah Bradley stuff and we kind of made it just compelling in a different way. But again, I think we're firing all story cylinders still, and we got a lot of great stuff. And again, I think we're still kind of building to the whole like the 6-hour movie individually. I think it's all going to come together really, really well by the end, especially once we have all 6 parts. I'm still loving the show. Two is even better than 1, and hopefully 3 will kind of like it'll just keep going like that. Each episode's going to be better and better.
Yeah, I think that episode 1 was, like I said, it was pretty slowly paced. I really feel like the show would have benefited a little bit from having both episodes 1 and 2 come out back to back, and then having the next 4 weeks spread it out. Especially because Zemo, I think, is a genuinely really good cliffhanger. Like, oh God, I have to see what's going on next week. But
and it makes sense that we're getting the Zemo because he has all the information. His little red notebook. He knows all this stuff.
But I'm quite satisfied with most of the stuff with the show. I definitely wouldn't say I'm head over heels for it. I think WandaVision was probably a way more conceptually ambitious project, and you know me, Dragon, I'm more for the more experimental side of the MCU. But as a follow-up to the Cap stuff in Endgame, I think the season is pretty damn ambitious in its own right, and I think it's shaping up to be something. And yeah, I definitely think the 3 of us can agree that John Walker is probably the MVP so far. So all right, well, that'll do it for us this week, folks, as we holster our remotes till the next installment goes for the draw. Mano y mano. Just plus. And us.
One world, one people.
You get a super soldier serum, and you get a super soldier serum. You all get super soldier serum.